24 hours after Prime Minister Modi unveiled the national emblem, the TMC was quick to attack the centre over the unveiling, claiming that Prime Minister Modi's version of the emblem was looking ferocious. TMC MP Mahua Moitra and Jawhar Sircar claimed that the emblem was an insult to the national symbol. TMC's Jawhar Sircar claimed that the original emblem was graceful, regally confident, while Prime Minister Modi's version above the Parliament building was snarling and unnecessarily aggressive and disproportionate. AIMIM Chief Ashoka Emblem has accused the Prime Minister's office of violating constitutional norms. Congress has jumped in the debate. Sandeep Dixit questioned as to why opposition parties were not present during this unveiling.
And other opposition parties, they are rudderless today. They do not have any issues because of the positive agenda that is being undertaken by the Prime Minister of the country. And whenever the nation is celebrating, these people are whining and they're trying to point out mistakes in all the actions that the government decides to take. I think they've got a befitting response from the people of the country in the past. They'll be replied to again in the election in the future. But this kind of opposition for the sake of opposition is not welcomed by the people of India.
We are also a very loyal Indian. And as, a new parliament building or a central vista project, etc., when we did object to it, it was during COVID times because of COVID mismanagement was happening, and there the government was seemed to be very busy with the central vista project. Now, it appears that because the opposition had placed certain objections at that time, and that's why none of the leaders of the opposition were called also for the event or for the opening yesterday. But we respect our emblem, we do.
Ritik Mondal is now joining us from Kolkata. Ritik, walk our viewers through what is the exact objection that the TMC is taking at this point of time over this entire controversy. In fact, Ashoka Emblem has also reacted to this particular emblem and called it unconstitutional. What is the TMC stance?
See, actually, Prime Minister Narendra Modi Monday unveiled the new emblem which has been placed atop of Central Vista there in Delhi, and what we have the very next day that TMC, it seems like it's triggering a new flashpoint between opposition TMC and BJP particularly after Jawhar tweeted that and I quote, that it is an insult of our national symbol, the majestic Ashokan lion, and Jawhar demanded immediate change of this emblem. On that particular tweet, Sircar also posted two pictures of national emblem. One was the previous one and the new one. Let me also mention that just a while back, Mahua Moitra, TMC member of parliament, she also tweeted the same picture but didn't mention anything. But it seems like now TMC is targeting particularly BJP and centre over this issue. Amid the situation, the opposition brigade are targeting and criticizing this event, what exactly happened yesterday in Delhi. And remember, at a time when BJP particularly are targeting TMC and its Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee over the Kali controversy, it seems like another flashpoint that has erupted, that has triggered by TMC senior leaders like Mahua Moitra or Jawhar Sircar, and this is going to be very interesting to see what stance BJP takes to react on this, as it has been decided by TMC to raise their voice over this issue when the BJP is mounting pressure on TMC over Kali controversy. So now TMC chose to hit back the BJP.
Jawhar Sircar of the Trinamool Congress is now joining us for a quick reaction on this story. Mr. Sircar, firstly, your reaction to this particular emblem.
See, I have already mentioned in my tweet that it is a distortion.
Okay.
However slight the distortion may appear to be, it is a distortion. And under the acts that guide the reproduction of national symbols, the national flag, there is no scope for even a hair to pass. There is no scope for distortion. Now, this distortion has been made in respect of certain features. like the aggression that comes out of the mouth of the lion that has been foisted, the lions that have been foisted. Ashokan lions symbolized royalty in its splendor, in their restraint. You have to understand Ashoka. You don't have to go too far to, architects and visualizers are available here and there. But Ashoka and his philosophy has to be understood in the light of this controversy. Ashokan lions were regal. They were sangyam, as we put in Hindi. They were restrained. They were restrained, they were peaceful. They were trying to convey a placid regality that was peaceful and caring where the people were concerned. These aggressive lions obviously represent the cult of a particular group, but are not in tandem with what India and its symbolism is. So
right. If I could also ask you to elaborate legally where this is flouting the law of the land.
See, we have two acts guiding the national flag: insult to the national flag, dishonor to the national flag, and we also have an act guiding the national symbols.
Correct.
And there are laws guiding the national symbols: the scale, the size, the color, everything is guided. You cannot go and put a national symbol on top of your car. You can't.
Yes.
There's a strict law about it, and you can't put fat lions and get away with it. Not on official stationery, not on official things.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have taken from the printer wrong symbols of the national emblem and we have discarded them. Because even if it's fractionally wrong, it hurts the eye and it draws adverse attention. Now here is a case where you will see the scale, the shape, there is a distortion. I just can't understand.
All right, Mr. Sircar, if I could just ask you to stay on with us because Priyanka Tibrewal would like to respond to you of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Ms. Tibrewal, you know, according to the TMC leader, Mr. Sircar, this is flouting the law of the land and you cannot be tampering with the emblem like that. How do you respond?
No, if he's talking about the law of the land, then I think media is not the correct forum. He should go before the courts of law. He should point out what are the mistakes which have been done, if there are any. Now, you see, TMC as an opposition, they are always ready to oppose each and everything. And in that, they forget the federal structure as well. Now, they are just trying to jump over each and everything the Prime Minister does. They are trying to show faults in each and everything. But now, this thing what Mr. Sircar is doing, this is actually not the thing which they are wanting to prove. Now what they are trying to do, because of this Mahua Mitra statement which she gave on Kali, which is all over there in India, which has hurted the feelings of Hindus, and everyone is there on the road doing rallies and protests. So in order to cover that up, they came out with something new. So that if this is there in the media, then people will forget that.
No,
but
that's
I don't think that this will help.
Tibrewal, that's a different issue altogether. What Mr. Sircar is saying is about the emblem. And like you mentioned, that media is not the platform. Then what is the platform? Do you want them to go to court? Mr. Sircar, are you planning to approach the court with this?
Of course, he said that the law of the land has hurt. If you are hurting the law of the land, then go to the courts of law.
I agree. Let Mr. Sircar respond to that. Are you planning to take this up legally, Mr. Sircar? Your party, rather.
We will decide as a collective group. We are not led by a single person as some other parties are. There is a leadership from a particular section, but these decisions are taken in a very democratic manner. And we have good lawyers with us. We will go into that part. But this is not the way of deflecting the issue. The issue at heart is whether there is a distortion. And the lady on the other side must answer that, like we did in a particular seminar just now. The BJP candidate admitted that there is a distortion. The snarl on the face of the lion is
so that's a very pointed question you asked, Mr. Sircar. Ms. Tibrewal, is there a distortion as alleged by the TMC?
Now that is what I'm saying. Whatever they are seeing through their eyes, we will answer to that. If they think that there is legally any fault in the same, you go to the court of law and we'll answer you there if required. But like I said, just to cover up things, just to cover up their faults, they are coming with these kind of issues. And we all know that and understand that well.
Mr. Sircar, the BJP says you're opposing for the sake of opposing, but your point here is the distortion of the emblem. If you could respond to Ms. Tibrewal on this.
That is a very painful reply, a painful response, because it sort of upsets the entire background of what I have done in my life. I am not an originally political person. I had to come out to the streets to oppose the destruction of democracy, but that's a different question.
Yeah.
We are on a very pointed issue of whether there is a distortion in the statue or not. I am claiming that there is distortion. So if government has necessarily to set up an artist committee or a committee of experts, then you can go into the issue. Number two, where the nation's property is concerned and visual world has become so strong, the visuals can go parallelly for the nation to take a call. Why should the nation's decision on everything? The nation has eyes. The nation can take its own calls whether the eyes meet the reality, whether it's distortion. So whether it is reality or distortion is a question that the public themselves can do it. And
Mr. Sircar, would you say this is against federalism because the Parliament House is not going to be occupied by one particular party alone? It will be occupied by the opposition as well.
No, the person who spoke does not know F of federalism. Every act in the last 8 years has been anti-federal. Anti-federal, from demonetization that was not consulted with the state, to every act is an act of drama, is an act of hegemony, is an act of stupendous force being rammed down the throats of the people of India and the state. Expansion of the jurisdiction of PSF. Whatever they have done is done with a unitary principle in mind, with very little respect for either democracy, plurality, or federalism. The person has absolutely no right to speak on federalism, non-federalism. They have no idea. She is distorting the issue.
Ms. Tibrewal, what's your response to Mr.
Talking of
Sircar?
federalism. That is what I'm saying. Look who is speaking about federalism.
One by one. Ms. Tibrewal,
let me complete, please. Let me complete. I did not interfere when you were speaking.
Yes, Ms.
Look who is speaking about federalism, where the TMC fails, where they fail to respect the federal structure. Here in the state of West Bengal, no schemes of the central government are implemented here. Whether it is Ayushman Yojana, whether it is Awas Yojana, TMC doesn't, or whether it is the Kisan Samman Nidhi, TMC doesn't allow any scheme to reach to the people. And now they're talking about the federal structure, although they always demand funds from the center, but they fail to provide the audit and reports to the same.
Ms. Tibrewal, both of you, with all due respect, let's not digress to the other issues. Here we're talking about the emblem. Let's restrict our conversation about the emblem. How do you respond to Mr. Sircar on the violation of federalism?
I have specifically stated that whether it is a violation or not, only their opposing will not prove the same. If he feels that there is a violation, if he feels that something has been distorted, then he should do it before the court of laws and we'll answer it there.
And one question here, as a journalist, I want to ask Ms. Tibrewal here is that were there other political parties who were invited and consulted before this new emblem was unveiled?
I am not aware of the same. But yes, once again, I'm saying that we believe in the federal structure, we believe in the constitution. So if they think that something has gone wrong as per law, then they can proceed.
Mr. Sircar, was the TMC approached?
Listen, as a member of parliament, why are you branding me all the time as TMC? I'm a member of parliament with a broader heart than the person who is trying to...
Absolutely. Were there any other political parties?
We are talking, no parliamentarian was consulted at all about what building is being made for them, why it is being made, why is it necessary to spend hundreds and thousands of crores in the beautification of an area that would perhaps have to be renamed after a particular individual. The seeking of personal glory and immortality does not obviate the necessity of day-to-day administration and the crisis that we have to lead to. No parliamentarian was consulted in this. I have asked repeated questions as to why Parliament was not consulted, to which the Minister has said, we consulted the Speaker, we consulted such and such, we consulted a small group. That's all. It is an undemocratic thing. The whole thing is undemocratic. So what are we talking about? And obviously things done in autocratic haste through favoritism of architects and designers is bound to land up in such messes. Let them samhalo the mess.
Now, like I said, just because they want to oppose each and everything,
Mr. Sircar's limited point here that the parliamentarians were not consulted. Is that true?
Now, that's what I'm saying. Whether this is true or not, all parliamentarians should answer this. No, only with his claim, this will not turn out to be true. We haven't heard about this from the other parliamentarians. It is only he. And if the opposition unitedly says that they were not consulted, then we will come to a conclusion. But only him speaking and yelling, because this is TMC, as I said. They have a nature of objecting and opposing each and everything. And this started when this Central Vista project started. Only then they started doing it. So whatever the government does, they will oppose, because that is in their nature. That is in their nature. And Mr. Sircar, I think you are not even aware that when in West Bengal, the entire office was shifted from Writers' Building to Labanna, I would like to ask you how many members of the Legislative Assembly were consulted.
You know, since
they don't work there. They don't work either in Writers or in Labanna. Get your facts clear. Get your facts clear. They don't work there.
All right.
Who doesn't work there? You shifted everything from Writers to Labanna. No one was consulted. Now, like I said, your basic nature is to oppose, and that is the reason you're opposing.
MLAs don't work in Writers' Building. Don't bring on distortions and imaginary points from
that
here
is exactly I'm telling you. The government shifted the entire base from there to Labanna.
There is a growing chorus coming in from the BJP. I just spoke to Shehzad Poonawalla a little while back as well, who said that, you know, the TMC has started opposing things for the sake of opposing. Case in point, the Smriti Irani issue and giving her the charge of Minority Affairs Ministry as well. Any reaction from you as far as that is concerned, Mr. Sircar?
No, I'm glad that they have woken up to the reality of the issue. The more they shout, the more the public issue will come out. And let that be adjust for the people. That's all. They were passing through the building of Parliament and others in a rush. That's all.
No, Mr. Sircar, I agree. On another story entirely, if I could get your quick reaction on the TMC targeting Smriti Irani, calling her a hardcore Hindu married to a Parsi who got charge of Muslims and Christians in India. How do you respond to that? Because how does it matter who she's married to, what her religion is? This is a separate story. I want your reaction here.
I said it is secular. I said this is secular. Please distinguish between the negative and the positive. I said this is secular. This is secular. This is the way India behaves, has behaved all along. That's all. That's all. Don't send every tweet that I do to the dissection factory on the 4th floor of some building in Rouse Avenue. I mean, don't get in. Let's not get in for all that. It's a very positive tweet I made. That's all. I remain stand by it. That is a very positive tweet. And that's ended with a question mark also.
Correct.
Okay.
Ms. Tibrewal, would you like to respond?
Conclude would say that whatever his queries are, he can once again I would say and suggest that go to the court of law. We'll answer it there. And I really sympathize because of the issues that they are having regarding the new parliament building and everything. So the public at large will not give them a chance much to sit in the building. And I'm sure of that.
We've moved on to your reaction on Smriti Irani, being given the charge of Minority Affairs Ministry, and of course the TMC has taken objection to it as well. Ms. Tibrewal, what do you have to say to the TMC at this point?
Ms. Smriti Irani has always proved through her work that she can handle each and every responsibility which has been given to her. This is yet another responsibility which has been given to her. And what is the wrong which TMC is seeing in this, I do not understand. Although here we see a TMC who does the politics of appeasement here in West Bengal, and that is the reason that when sentiments of Hindus are hurt, they are quiet and mum on that, they do not speak, because that is the intention. That is the intention, that is the reason they have not for once spoken what Mahua Mitra said against Kali. So this appeasement politics is done by TMC, and we do not appreciate speaking on such issues.
Mr. Sircar?
It is called secularism. It is called secularism, which is an integral part of our constitution, which is distorted by fanatics to call it as appeasement politics. It is called secularism. It is called plurality. These are the pillars on which our constitution is based. The distortion of these principles by unprincipled people who believe only in communalism, communal rights, and in the killing of Muslims and other minorities does not obviate us from the fact that both secularism and plurality are integral parts of our
Mr. Sircar,
constitution.
I don't understand. Your tweet says that Smriti Irani has been assigned the charge of Ministry of Minority Affairs after Naqvi has resigned. Hardcore Hindu, married to a Parsi, given charge of Muslims, Christian. Is this the BJP's brand of secularism? I don't understand where the problem is. If you could just explain what you're trying to say.
There is no problem. I'm asking them a question, so they take it after a week. After analyzing everything that they can bring up, there is no objection. It's just a question. Is it your brand of secularism? Because remember, they had made the word secularism into secularism, a very dirty word.
Yeah.
They had made, it is we who cherish secularism. It is we who do not look at religious barriers. So now by obviating religious barriers, are you secular? That's all.
And we are not as secular as they are.
All right.
We are not as secular as they are because hurting the feelings and religious feelings deliberately with the intent to wound their religious feeling is secularism as per them. And when the Chief Minister was shouting and yelling to arrest Nupur Sharma, was their appeasement to Muslims, and now they are quiet on the same issue. So this is what their secularism is. This is your secularism. Yes, of course, this is your deliberate secularism with the intent to wound the religious feelings of Hindus. You are quiet and mum. But when it is about
to be fair, Ms. Tibrewal, they have
you
condemned
call
the
them
issue. To be fair, Ms. Tibrewal, the TMC has condemned what Mahua Moitra has said. I'm going to let you both go and thank you very much for joining us on this broadcast.